All right, this is technically I'm calling this week two because this is week two, and so in a 9 week course it would be week two. The 2 days I called it in my head week 1.5. So we're on week two, Monday, and the key topic of the day is the element of the arts. And I'm going to go over it briefly, and then encourage you to look at and view some of the resources that I've left behind so that you can get a fuller understanding of what the elements of the arts are. Excuse me. So if you click on this link right here, it takes you to a YouTube playlist that discusses all 7 elements of art. An element of art is like a component that all art is made up of. So what we're doing here is identifying the component and describing it so that you can get some practice uh, learning how these work. If you watch each one of these, they will give you a good 3 to 5 minute at the max explanation of what these concepts mean. But the key question of the day is to discuss and really try to wrap our heads around what it means in terms of photography and what you'll be asked to do to demonstrate your knowledge of this. This is Monday's assignment. Tuesday will be primarily a working day for it with Q&A, no new instruction. And then Wednesday, if you need to, you can work on that as well. The assignment is the second link, and that is here. So basically, what I'm asking you to do, and I've got this document here that has the rubric and another way of doing the terms, but I copied those terms here, so I'm going to go over what that is. Is you're going to look through your camera roll, and you're going to find a photograph that is an example of each one of the elements of arts. And basically what you're trying to do is find a photograph where that is a prominent feature. And if you look through your pictures that you've taken, you will probably find good examples. If not, you may need to take an additional shot just if you have any gaps of understanding. A lot of this builds on photography 1 concepts as well. So you're going to build a web page in photography 2 that is titled Elements of Art. There's an example here that we'll get to. You're going to find a picture for each element and drop it in there, and then you're going to describe that element and label it clearly and describe how you best describe what's going on in the photo with that particular element. So the elements are line, shape, space, texture, color, value, and form. And these terms here are terms that you can use to describe each photo. So if you have a photo in line, for example, there should be some lines prominent. And in photo 1, we used leading line as kind of the only way, but there are many ways that you could use line. And in photography, you're seeing lines and you're describing lines that you might use in the work. So for example, I've got these horizontal lines that would be the wrinkles on my forehead. And if there was a full shot, that would be part of the line. And I'm kind of teasing myself for this, but again, lines are everywhere. It's really about being able to describe that. So these terms, hang on to those, use them when you are writing. And I'm going to add in that they should be written in bold or italicized so I can see them in your actual writing. So again, there's another link to the KQED Art School. It's worth 25 minutes of your time to dive a little bit deeper into each element. But I'm going to use the website itself just to demonstrate. So this example website should take you to this page. And I want to talk more about how that works and how it would look. Again, you're only going to do 1 photo for each element. If you're pursuing the 7 or the 8, then what you're going to do is take a new photo, but be more intentional about how you're using 1 or more of these elements. And as you go through, you'll see that multiple elements come together when describing work. So they blend together very seamlessly sometimes when you're trying to describe a work of art using the terminology and the elements of art. So I'm trying to break them down, but sometimes they cross over. So for example, in space, there's 2 kind of ways to look at space. One is positive and negative space. So this example here specifically talks about the fact that the light from the candles and the darkness from the background creates that positive and negative space. The positive space is the light and the negative space is the darkness. But then just like those pictures where you can flip it, you can see it other ways where maybe the shape of the cat is a positive space and everything else is negative space. But it's clearly used that way. In photography, you might have a photo that's got a focal point, like a portrait photo, where the subject is really, really sharp and then the background's really blurred. That creates some negative space too. It also, when you're talking about space, can be how you're using the frame, how you're using the square. And so I use the term clutter to describe this photo right here, which the intent of that shot was for me to get as many kites in the frame as possible. And that was the look, because it was a kite festival. So I tilted the camera up to the sky and tried to get as much as I could to fill up that frame. So it was very busy. Either way, it's really a discussion of photography about how you use the space in the shot. Texture. It's implied texture in photography. You can't actually reach out and touch things like you can painting or a sculpture. So the photographer will use texture and elements of texture to imply the feeling that the texture would be. And we did do an assignment in photo 1 that was literally repetition, texture, and balance. And in both of these, I'm trying to describe how it might feel and kind of talking about the different textures. So there's the woven fabric and the fur. And then this one, there's the ridges. You can almost feel those little tiny ridges. You know, if you scrape your fingernail along wood grain, you can feel that. There's the cracks and the texture of that. And there's a little bit of contrast between the smooth surface of the insect and the texture of the wood. In line, there are some terms. Again, I'll refer you back to the terms that you would use and try to highlight. But basically, there were 2 examples that came to mind. One was this spider web, and there's 2 types of lines. There's circular lines and radial lines. The circular lines are the patterns that are building around the web. And even though you can't really see all the radial lines, there are some radial lines there as well. But I'm also describing the radial lines that come out from the sun in the lens flare of this particular shot. So there's 2 sets of lines kind of intersecting that make up a predominant feature of this photo. And in this one, the lines are like a thicker line with joints at the intersection points, and they make geometric shapes. Again, I'm talking about shape, but that's another element of art. Color. Color is prominent in both of these photos. A very full frame of red, which is typically more of a warm color. So I use the term warmth to describe it. You can also Photoshop it to add a little more warmth in. There's always a temperature slider that you can use. And when I say Photoshop, I just mean it could be manipulated on a phone, or it could be manipulated on Adobe Lightroom, or whatever you're using to edit. And in this photo, it's much more of a cool photo. And this one was using artificial light it was the zoo lights a couple of years ago. And my daughter was looking around. I just saw that she was purple or bluish purple. So I took a picture of that, and she's completely lit by a whole arch of purple lights. Again, trying to describe, you know, what role color is playing. In all these cases, I'm being just descriptive. They're tools, and the goal of art, and if you watch the Elements of Arts videos, is to really try to communicate more than just, you know, it's a colorful picture. So for example, in this, you know, the cool tones really kind of reminded me, especially with the helmet, that it was a very cold day, and that wonder and the coldness. You know, if I could have gotten a little puff of her breath coming out, it would have also helped to sell that story. And that was kind of my goal, what I saw. I just caught that moment. But an artist will use all these elements to evoke feeling and to communicate more than just on its surface what the color is. And that's an important point about this going forward when you're trying to create your own photographs and be artistic about it. Shape. In that, there's 2 really different categories. There's organic and there's geometric. So this is an example of an organic or a natural shape, the kind of wispy arms of the cloud. It doesn't really follow a pattern. It's just kind of a random assortment of high altitude clouds being blown by the winds. Whereas this is a much more geometric shape formed by rectangles in a door with the sun coming through it. So you've got a lot of rectangular shapes, long rectangles, skinny rectangles, multiple rectangles based on the way that the light was creating those shapes. So again, be as descriptive as you can and use bold or italicize or both letters in your description. Value is a range of colors and a range of spectrum, basically. So you've got really, really bright and really, really dark and everywhere in between. And so when you have a photograph that has highlights and dark points and a large range going from, you know, incrementally down, that's what you're getting, is a very wide range of values in the image. In drawing for pencils, for example, you often have multiple pencils that you can use to get darker or lighter shades of gray when you're sketching out a drawing and you're shading it. So that's another way that value is used. In photography, that's how we would use it. And so in this particular one, I made it black and white to increase the contrast And now it has a very low range of values of light and dark. The photo is either really, really dark or really, really light. And so again, you can emphasize values by playing around with contrast and changing the look of the photo so that you have either more range or less range. So in this case, it's a very high contrasty, low value shot. And if you looked at it, there would be a lot of really dark ones and a lot of really light ones and only a few pixels that are somewhere in the middle in the gray range. Form is really about trying to capture a 3D object in a 2D surface. And there's different tricks you can use to use form to demonstrate form. One is just lighting. If you remember from photo one, we had side lighting, butterfly lighting, Rembrandt. Side lighting was split lighting. Rembrandt. What was the other one? Butterfly. I can't remember. There was a fourth one, and it'll probably pop up, and I'll say it randomly halfway through the video. Actually, I'm past that. Back on track. So form is how you use to reveal the form of your subject. In this case, I'm kind of using foreground, middle ground, background. In the foreground, you have the form of the bubble. And the light is also revealing the shape. You know, this is not a perfect sphere. This is a more of an organic, moving blob of bubble as it bends and changes the light around it. But you also can see that with the trees and the sky, it gives it a sense of depth. And so the shape is the shape in the scene is extended because there's more going on behind it. And in this photo, the shape of the structure is kind of a reverse on it. So instead of lighting it like you did the human face, where the shadows are falling on it, this is being lit from the inside. And by doing that, it's revealing the depth of the building, of the cabin, and giving you a sense of what it would look like. And you can visualize it based on this, you know, the dimensions of it, that this is the front, this roof kind of extends out, and that the inside of the building, it goes deep into the inside and reveals the struts of the, I don't know what the right term for it is, of the roof, and then the stone chimney. So in all these cases, and again, you're only going to do one, you're just doing a picture of each technique, putting on a website, and then really trying to describe it using the terms that are presented. And again, if you want to go for a 7 or an 8, do one for each, be really descriptive, and then take a picture or two that really intentionally uses this. So the ones that you're using here just should come from your camera roll. But if you're going to, you know, aim for that, take a moment to go out and consider which one of these elements or combination of elements you want to use to create an original photo, and then describe the element or elements that you've used. Hopefully this helps you get started. Again, you'll have tomorrow to work on it and Wednesday to work on it. And then go ahead and post and send the published web page to this assignment so that I can check it and give you some feedback. Just remember to publish it just before you turn it in so that I'm not getting an older version of it that might not have the text. So publish, share the published link. That's it.